Hi, I'm Margaret and welcome to Garden School. Today we're going to talk a little bit about pruners and what the application of each kind of pruner is. There are two major kinds of pruners. One is the bypass pruner, where the blades bypass each other like a pair of scissors. The other is the anvil pruner, where the one blade comes down onto a hard surface like an anvil to make the cut. Well, I was going to look for my anvil pruner and I couldn't find it. And it dawned on me, I probably got rid of it because I don't use it. The application for an anvil pruner is to cut dead wood. And the reason is, when you make the cut down onto the anvil surface, you're crushing that tissue that's there. And so on dead wood, that's fine. But on live wood, you're going to do damage to your plant tissue. So that's why I use a bypass pruner, the one that's like a scissor, which makes a clean cut. Now, there's even a right and a wrong way to use the bypass pruner. I just learned this. If you're looking at the pruner itself, there's the side where the blade comes down against the other surface, nice and smooth, but on the flip side, it comes down and the hard surface comes up against and passes the bypass pruner. So you can actually do some tissue damage to your plant by cutting it the wrong direction. And I'd like to show you some examples of this. Here is a rose stem that was pruned last year, and you can see this right here is, there's a little bit of dead tissue and then the live tissue. And that was probably caused when I put the harder blade that's wide next to that plant tissue and then made the clean cut on the outside. The better way would be to turn my pruner around so that it's going to have the clean cut right next to the part that I want. And that way there's less damage to that tissue. Now I also want to show you a stub right here. When you are doing some pruning for growth, or even just to, for fruit, for leaves, for flowers, you want to think about what's your desired result. So you're going to look for a bud, and I will talk about this one right here. Here's a little leaf shoot coming out. I want to cut right above that little leaf stem that's coming out. So the correct place to cut would be right above that little bud that's going to go out. And you want to do an angle of about 45 degrees on the opposite side of the shoot, so that the cut is angling and then the shoot is coming out that way. Now, if you leave too much of a stub and get a frost or some cold temperature, you'll have some dieback there. So try to go close, but not too close, because you want to have some room for that cut area to scab over and heal over. So that's a couple items there. Now I would like to also show you, just real quickly, what's a good idea about cleaning your pruner. One thing that I'm not that good at is not using my pruners for an emergency trowel or something like that. Well, they do best to cut if you just use them on plant tissue and keep them out of the dirt. So that's my advice to myself. I'm just going to use some all-purpose cleaner, and I'm going to just spray on the blade and then wipe it off. And if you would do this, you'll get rid of a lot of residue that would interfere with the sharpness of your blade. You can get replacement blades for these bypass pruners, and many of them even come with an extra blade, which is good. A sharp pair of pruners is great. And also, if you happen to be pruning and there's some diseased tissue, some people will recommend using a disinfectant between your cuts. So you can evaluate whether that would be beneficial for you or not. So there's a couple things about pruners. I prefer the bypass pruner, the one that's like the scissors, instead of the anvil pruner, but there are some applications for an anvil pruner. Another one item is try not to cut stems, prune stems that are too large for your pruner. It's better to get a lopper or a little pruning saw to do that. Well, there's a couple things to remember as you're thinking about doing some pruning. Well, there's always more to learn in the garden. Goodbye.